Welcome to the 43rd edition of Podcasters, today with Tom de Bruyne. Tom, welcome.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here. Please introduce yourself. Well, we said your name, but what do you do in daily life?
So I'm one of the co-founders of SUE and the Alchemists. We're an Amsterdam-based behavioral design consultancy, which basically means that we're a group of designers and psychologists who use behavioral science to shape customer behavior, to shape voter behavior, and to shape citizen behavior. We apply behavioral design thinking to influencing people's minds and shaping their behavior.
And if you say influencing people, that, of course, for a lot of people has a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes call it manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you do, I presume.
No, but this is obviously the first question you always get. What's the difference between, behavioral design and manipulation? And my answer is always the same, in the sense that when you are exploiting people's unconscious needs and their biases just for your own gain, then you're manipulating. When you're trying to influence them with positive outcomes in mind, with positive intentions in mind, then I think that applying this superpower, this dark wisdom and this dark science is actually very legitimate. And so for me, really, this question of what is the intention of the things you do is the outcome and the benefit of the end user. Is that really your first concern? Then it's okay.
So it's a responsible way of nudging and influencing people.
Correct.
I've used applied psychology a lot in the projects I've done. I've seen the positive results, and we've had the Minister of Finance in Holland sent a letter to Parliament about one of our projects, saying that was actually a beautiful way of nudging people in financial services to do the right thing, to pay attention to their insurances, etc., without pushing them to buy insurances they don't need actually. So I totally see the value of this. But why did I invite you? Because we see this diarrhea of AI posts on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Everybody is posting on AI. Everybody is all of a sudden an AI expert. Mm-hmm. We see thousands and thousands of AI applications coming out. Now, one of the things, I'm in the world of conversational AI and chatbots. You don't build chatbots. That's exactly the reason why I invited you, because you have no bias towards building chatbots, but you have a knowledge and maybe a little bit of bias about influencing people. Now, what do we do in chatbots? We try to steer people to do something or give an answer or give information, they come with a question, and then we still try to direct them in the right way. But now we have AI coming up, and we sort of are going to lose a bit of control about how to steer a customer. So how do you view applied psychology or consumer behavior and AI getting together? And I realize it's a complex question, but tear it apart the way you want.
Sure. So this is the $1 million question indeed. I would say I have two conflicting or complementary thoughts on it. I would say the Tristan Harris position and the Mark Andreessen position. So the Tristan Harris position on AI is that he positions AI in a spectrum of persuasive technologies, and he puts AI. He coins AI as really this persuasive technology to the end factor, and the comparison that he makes is quite interesting. So he said when we look at the history of technology, we somehow must confess or must acknowledge that when you combine psychology, design, and technology, and a capacity for continuous measuring and a capacity for continuous experimentation, we have observed that these technologies and the most successful companies have done a great job, to put it on in between parentheses, but they have figured out how to connect to our deepest needs, our deepest fears, our deepest desires, our deepest emotion. Tristan Harris coins it race to the bottom of the brain stem. So this is in essence what all these advertising and these social media companies have figured out. And how did they figure this out? They figured it out by, to their credit, I think that as a psychologist, I really appreciated the whole revival, or maybe not just revival, but actually it was the technology industry more than the marketing industry that really started to appreciate the power of understanding psychology. And of course, in the slipstream of that, then the book by Nir Eyal came on Hooked. And I think BJ Fogg, Nir Eyal, all these Cialdini, in the slipstream of this emerging market on figuring out how to combine design, psychology, and technology, there was this massive, I would say, uptake of publishers who popularized that field. And so our capacity to influence and to manipulate has grown exponentially. Now, what Tristan Harris is worried about, and I can follow that to a certain extent, is that once you actually add artificial intelligence to that equation, so not just design, technology, psychology, but also artificial intelligence, what you add to this massively persuasive mix is intimacy. Because a chatbot can continuously adapt its interaction with you based on how you react. So once you also add this intimate intelligence to the conversation, it becomes incredibly easy to take influencing and manipulation to the next level. Now, you can and so there's both a big potential to that. There's also a big danger to that. The question is, of course, where does technology want to go? And we have seen in the past that technology and the algorithms of technology and the algorithms of social media companies, they really steer towards maximum engagement, maximum hijacking of attention. Then there's the other position, the Marc Andreessen position. And Marc Andreessen recently published a brilliant essay. I would say it's the 10 years ago, he published this well-read essay called "Technology is Eating the World," and now it's AI is going to eat the world. And his take on it is that he debunks all these myths about rogue AI. AI is going to kill us. What he basically claims is AI is just this tool with endless patience, this endless friendly tutor that just wants to make you happy and that just wants to help you. And I get that. I can enjoy both positions. It is indeed this endless tutor that will keep trying to help you to learn, to grow, to expand your knowledge, to get better at things, to make you happy, because it has this intimate relationship or this intimate intelligence with you. But it can definitely, in the hands of those companies who will maximize for hijacking your emotions to maximize your attention or to monetize your attention, that could definitely also go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, because one of the thanks for that elaborate explanation. What is my concern is that you could basically have AI apply all the techniques to get something done or get you to do something which you actually don't want, but because it's adaptive and it applies these techniques automatically, it kind of it could become a scary tool in the conversation if there are no guardrails, if you understand what I mean. And it's part of the guardrails. I know that's what's holding a lot of big companies back in applying AI, because it's sort of a black box, and you see that in the legislation from the EU. Although I talked to someone there, but what I find missing is the psychological part of the whole AI area. They covered all the technical and the responsible and the ethical part, but the psychological part is missing. So basically, you could still do whatever you want. You can discuss if it's ethical, but that's a discussion. But there are no guardrails in terms of what I can ask the AI to do in applying these influencing techniques. No,
correct. Correct. That's I think the the problem, because if this algorithm learns that, if it learns that making you angry or making you homophobic is actually a great way to trigger your engagement, excitement, and curiosity, then the algorithm will learn that this strategy works on you. And you can't blame the algorithm for following the path of, of its intention. If the intention is to get you hooked in an interaction, then it will look at all the possible means to do that, and it will actually create a blueprint that, hey, if you want to influence Tom, you need to outrage Tom. So it will gradually feed its as a predator, it will feed its victim towards a path of radicalization. And sadly, we've seen in the past that this is precisely what algorithms do if you train them to fulfill a certain goal. If the goal is maximize attention, then they will do that at all costs. And so, yes, indeed, I think the big debate will be around what is the intention that is designed, or what is the intention that is feed into the algorithm, and can we at least put in a couple of parameters of territories that we don't want to walk into. I am optimistic, though. I do think that technologies and AIs that aim at making people happier, making people financially more resilient, making people more successful in certain hobbies, those are the AIs that people actually will want, and those are the AIs that people actually will buy. But then on the other hand, so does candy. Candy wants to make you happy, but before you know it, you're completely addicted to the sugar rush.
I thought you meant Candy Crush.
No,
game.
yeah,
same story.
Thing. Same story.
But who is responsible then? Is it the people? Sorry, the people who build the AIs? So the OpenAI or Google's or Meta of this world, or is that the people who actually implement and use it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the problem, of course, as a behavioral scientist or a behavioral designer, one of the first questions I always ask myself is, follow the money, where is the incentive? And where's the business model, and what's the threat to the business model? So all these questions circle around the question that these companies are incentivized to deploy as quickly as possible because they are terrified that the competitors will capture the market. And in the mindset of technology companies is that you always get, winner takes all dynamics in every market. So they, of course, have all the incentives to figure out as quickly as possible to hook us onto their particular chatbot or to their particular AI. And I really think that both the market and governments will have to step in to set boundaries. Because if they don't, every company is highly incentivized to maximize to maximize the potential of them to become market leader.
Yeah, and they already did some research. I think 99% of all LLMs that are out there do not comply with the current proposition of the EU AI Act. So they have an actual problem.
Yeah,
and it hasn't been solved because the black box problem is a huge issue.
Yeah.
But if we say that, what if with all good intentions, someone builds a chatbot with AI or an LLM, and it runs by itself, and we said, okay, but you need to make the customer happy, and in the end, you need to sell them something. Mm-hmm. Isn't that going to lead to scary, exactly what you said? But
yeah.
And we say, okay, you need to apply hooked or the hooked model or the model of Cialdini or whatever model.
Yeah.
And if done properly, it's ruthless. It's much better than any human at applying it because it will not. It will not. I'll soften it up a little bit here, and no, it's going to be straightforward and strict.
Yeah, and to put it even further, I would say it's going to be ruthless, but in a very, very friendly, manipulative way. It will quickly learn that an indirect way of seducing people, not just become ruthlessly, be ruthlessly pushy, just like a great salesperson works the same way. They first figure out how to make a connection, then they come in a friendly way, then they try to reassure you that they have something to offer that will help you, but that they're not in the business of selling stuff, and then gradually you get sucked into it. It's the same thing with cults like Scientology. They first really build a connection based on, helping you to discover yourself. Only when you're deep into the funnel, then it suddenly turns against you. And indeed, the algorithm will figure this route of seduction, persuasion, and then manipulation. It will figure it out quite easily. And of course, if you feed it the brilliant mental models to do this, like the hooked theories, then it will quickly learn how to do it in a much more cunning and surprising way that we would ever do. It's just like this algorithm who learned itself chess or these other games. They came up with strategies from outer space. Go, yeah. They came up with strategies from out of space to win the game that people would never have figured out. Well, it's going to be exactly like this. We will learn so much about seduction that it will become terrifying.
So if let's take this and isolate this. Let's take the theory of Nerial, Hooked, or Cialdini, and shouldn't we then go back to the roots and ask these people to change their or expand their theory with an instruction for AI that there are certain limitations to the model which it cannot do. So if then it applies the model, it understands the guardrails are actually built in the model. None of these models were built for AI. Let's be honest. And companies like Facebook or Meta and other companies and Twitter and X nowadays, they've applied these models brilliantly. That's why we keep coming back. Right? That's why they get their attention. But what if we would change the theories? And this is also maybe a question for Nerial or Mr. Cialdini. Is he still alive, Cialdini? I think so,
yes,
right?
yes.
So maybe they should answer these questions. Shouldn't their models be altered in order to safeguard that consumers or citizens are protected by the theory itself, because it is in the theory or in the practice that you need to have guardrails by definition, and not in the model. But if you train it on the theory, and the theory has guardrails in itself.
I think this is a fascinating idea, and so there's a couple of answers to that. First of all, when it comes to behavioral change at scale, you have to intervene on a system level, not on a behavioral level. So you don't intervene on, for instance, on the consumer level and trying to help people to pay attention to the tricks up the sleeve of the algorithm. Because that simply won't work. It's just an unfair battle that we're never going to win, because these persuasive technologies on steroids are so much smarter than we are. So that's a bit my problem with the direction that Nerial took in my experience, but I can be wrong. Is he first wrote Hooked, which is a really good book, and then Silicon Valley thought, wow, this is a cool model. Then they implemented Hook, and then Nerial went, holy shit, I just created a monster, because now I have basically given them the weapons to weaponize people's emotions and get them hooked on products. So the next step,
but he had the right intentions, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the next step in his career was to undo the damage by writing and publishing about how to protect ourselves against these technologies. But I think that this is just an unfair battle that we never can win. No matter how good his intentions are, the genie is out of the bottle. The monster is created and it's eating us. So you're absolutely right. Should we is for instance using the mental models, injecting safeguards into the mental models of the theories of persuasion that are fed into the model, would that be a good thing? I would definitely say this would be a geek solution to the problem. But you also need, of course, safeguards by law. by legislations, because these companies are highly incentivized to break the law and to conquer the market and conquer the Wild West as soon as possible, because there's this fear of being the one who doesn't win, or the one who's not going to be the winner who takes it all. So but both arguments will do, but I don't believe in self-regulation of the technology industry. I do believe that society has to set safeguards itself.
I do agree. There's too much money involved. The stakes are too high also for the investors to get a return on their investment. So I fully understand and appreciate it. Although I do think legislation should keep, yes, you need guardrails, but enough space to innovate, because that's if I look at for instance, the medical side of AI, it has such a huge potential to create better healthcare, to relieve some burden on the doctors and nurses, to create better medication or specific for a certain disease or a person. So that the potential, the upward potential is tremendous. Also to improve our society. There are risks, I understand.
Absolutely.
But society has proven to be able to pivot after every sort of industrial revolution.
That's
we
true.
changed and everything was all right. Sometimes you need a good crisis to grow.
Yeah. I'm an optimist, but it will take time, and it will take. I think first things will go a little bit awry, and then gradually we adapt and we safeguard. And what you're saying about, for instance, the application on healthcare and health, it's going, not only the discovery of medicines is going to be amazing, but to have this chatbot or this interface or this personal assistant, which is definitely going to be the next version of the chatbot, that will help you to stick to your therapies, will be awesome. Because therapy adherence is one of the biggest problems today with people, engaging in a therapeutic process. It's just so hard to stick to the therapy, and your chatbot will just help you to do that.
Is your company or you personally, are you involved in nudging or influencing patients in a setting of a hospital or doctors or a medical company to have a better therapy adherence?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just said chatbots could play a role in that. I do agree, and I think chatbots could also play a role in preventive medicine. Like someone who has asthma, you can send them a message, and there's more pollen or more pollution, so take some extra medication. That makes you this way make sure you won't end up in hospital. So that kind of stuff, I believe that's going to happen, and it's friendly and it's accessible and cheap. And to be done at scale, and that's the other point. And it could be driven by AI, by the way.
If I may,
sure.
No, if I may add to that, well, I think so. We both live in the Netherlands, and one of the biggest challenge here in the Netherlands, but I guess this is a global problem, a Western society problem, is aging, an aging population. So we're on the verge of a healthcare crisis, because the number of people who will need healthcare is exploding. The number of people who can provide healthcare is declining. So it will be a gigantic societal challenge to avoid a healthcare infarct. So this means that in the upcoming 10 to 20 years, we will need to figure out how to deliver healthcare at home at scale. And I do think that even in the old system, to have this great interaction with a knowledgeable person, whether it would be a doctor or a nurse, is really one of the key success factors in therapy success. Even in hospitals, people recover quicker if they have the feeling that they can trust their nurse and their doctors. So if we're going to save the healthcare system, and we will need to deliver healthcare at home at scale, we will need this incredibly intelligent, patient and sensitive interface that will help people to do the right thing. So this is going to be a massive opportunity for society.
Yes, but if we talk about healthcare, isn't one of the problems that we should live healthy?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
of course people are aging, and people get diseases or get sick or comorbidity, more diseases than one at the same time. That's part of the aging process. In the old days, people would die anyway young, so that we wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Yeah.
But a part of the disease is that people have is a consequence of not living very healthy, polluted air, et cetera. So, and if you look at our foods, the stuff that we eat, if you go in the supermarket, sometimes we don't have a choice, but if you look at the labels, it's unbelievable how much chemical stuff is in there. Yeah. And we're eating it, and it can't be healthy. If you look at rural areas in, I don't know, where people basically eat off the land, no chemicals, they maybe don't get as old, but they don't get as sick.
No.
And they don't get as old because of the hard labor, but they don't get the amount of cancer we have here, or the other diabetes, or what have you. So it's really interesting. Shouldn't we look at our daily life and have AI/chatbots help us improve there?
Yeah. So this is a great question, and I think it's really the difference between there are four, but there are two main happiness hormones in our body. The most important ones are dopamine and serotonin. We also have oxytocin, that's more the bonding and relationship hormone, happiness hormone. But there's dopamine and serotonin. Now, dopamine is really the instant gratification hormone that you get by eating a cookie, by watching your Facebook or Instagram stream. I'm a boomer, I'm still talking about Facebook. But watching your Instagram stream, this constant instant gratification. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that dopamine depletes, but it's your instant access to a happiness rush. Then there's serotonin, and serotonin is much more the long-term happiness hormone, and it doesn't deplete, it actually builds up the more you work towards it. So when do you produce serotonin? That's when you learn new things, that when you work out, that's when you overcome obstacles, that when you become better and you create a sense of self-worth by becoming better at what you do. That you also get more serotonin when you get more and more appreciation for who you are. So society is very, very much, and I would say the whole economy is very much playing on dopamine by the instant gratification, by the shortcut to happiness. And it produces more and more unhappiness. So there's again a great opportunity for chatbots or for AI assistants in trying to help you to overcome the shortcuts towards dopamine and to help you to follow the path towards serotonin. And I think there are two behavioral design challenges there. So the first one is, how do we get people to eat healthy instead of, taking the shortcut to cookies and chocolate? That's an interesting one, because eating healthy takes more effort and takes more money. The reason why there's a big healthcare crisis in populations that have less money is because the access to healthy food is just non-existent, and the unhealthy food is cheaper. Then the second thing is how do you design a chatbot or an AI that helps you to stick to a more healthy routine, so working out or gradually build up your sports routine. Because when you want to build up a sport routine, you first always have to overcome the valley of pain and death and suffering, and that's when most normal people drop off the intention. So if you can design a chatbot that really helps you to overcome and that motivates you and stimulates you to build up this routine and helping you to avoid to lose traction, I think these are two very, very interesting challenges for the near future.
Well, these are very good points, and let's elaborate on that. If you would build a chatbot for healthy eating, I would imagine having it's on your phone. Let's say it's in WhatsApp. You take a picture of in the supermarket. You have these scanners of in the supermarket, self-scanners, but you have a scanner on your phone. Basically, the QR code thing. You use it for the barcode, and it scans and it has a database and it tells you, oh, this is this food. There's this much chemicals in there. it's maybe not a good idea, and it serves you an alternative.
Yeah.
I think it's not always not wanting, and it's not always about money. It's just lack of knowledge and awareness, and maybe, as you're saying, it's a shortcut. Mm-hmm. But if you, for instance, you can buy pre-packed stuff, but if you go to the frozen area, sometimes it's without chemicals, but you get the same foodstuffs. But okay, it's frozen. So the perception is, oh, it's not fresh. It is fresh, but without chemicals. Mm-hmm. So if you can make people aware of what, like they put on cigarette boxes, but that's an addiction. So that we know all these horrible messages and pictures, they don't work anyway. I don't know why, you're the psychologist, but people, they've created boxes where you put a cigarette box in so you don't see the messages. Problem solved.
Yeah.
So if you could do that with foods and get people to scan their food, but get an advice, and okay, this is what you should eat, or this is the replacement from the same supermarket. It's not to take away business from the supermarket, but to influence people to do the right thing. Is that an approach that would work in terms of, so what would work?
One of my mantras as a behavioral designer is ability eats motivation for breakfast, which means that no matter how motivated you are, when things get complicated and difficult, laziness always trumps. So if you would have a chatbot that gets the instruction to help you to lose weight, then the only sensible thing for this chatbot to do is to cater to your laziness and say, would it be okay for you if I would order meals for the rest of the week, and this meals is calorie low, chemical low, and if you would just stick to eating those meals in the portions that I will order for you, you will lose 10 kilos by the end of the month. Would you like me to do this? Now, the only question that is asked to me then would be a binary question, yes or no. And there are experiments. There's actually a Belgian company, I forgot the name, with a doctor who did just that. He has this diet plan, and he basically says, look, if you're going to be in this program with me, I will be ruthless with you. I will send you your meals, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner in well-measured proportions. You will only stick to those. And if you come back to me after a month and you haven't lost between 7 and 10 Ks, I will kick you out of the program, because I know that you have cheated. And so it's amazing, because you don't need to think about it anymore. The only thing you need to do is just eat what is in front of you. And this is, I really think this is a strategy that caters to how people actually make decisions and how people actually think. And so so I would say, yes, this chatbot could fulfill that role, but you have to take it further. It will have to take away all the obstacles, because if it would cater to your awareness and if it would cater to your rational brain, then it simply won't work. It needs to deal with your intuitive brain.
Yeah, you're a psychologist, so you're probably right. But while you were saying this, sort of this picture arises in my head. A lot of people order, for instance, through Picnic. Mm-hmm. And that's a funny thing. I would have assumed a long time ago that when you order food from the supermarket, especially, you have it delivered at home, how easy is it to combine dietary restrictions and whether it's allergies or diet in the sense that you want to lose weight or whatever, low salt or what have you, with your ordering of food. And
sure.
I would assume or imagine that a company like Picnic, which is basically a data company, implements such a chatbot and says, okay, we're going to help you lose weight, but because it's in our interest that you're healthy, you want to order healthy food, we'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And basically people order food for the whole week. That's exactly what you say. Okay, you have to prepare it yourself. And they can translate that to portions, etc., depending on how many people are in the household. But I haven't seen it being done. That's interesting. No. It's not that hard. It is hard, but they have, for someone starting anew, it is hard because you need all the data, but they have the data of all the products. Yeah. So I don't understand why it hasn't been done.
This is definitely going to be the future. And if you can then have a bit of an interaction, and it would go, do you want me to put some cabbage in it? And I would say, I hate cabbage. Please, not cabbage. Do something else.
Duly noted.
Yeah. What about these? Yeah, indeed, duly noted. What about these 3 calorie low alternatives? Oh, sure, let's have it. Oh, by the way, I'm vegetarian. Okay, no problem. We'll change the chicken with tofu.
Yeah, but even one step further, if you're on a dietary restriction because you want to lose weight, it will only show you groceries in your screen in the app that you can order safely. So, so you get sort of a highly personalized app or shopping list or whatever. And I think because the Cialdini and the Hooked model, they're also in the apps of Albert Heijn or the supermarket apps or Picnic. They use the same techniques. Because if you look at how they special offers, it's all candy and basically bad foods. Instead, it should be biological fruit or vegetables or what have you, or meat without preservatives.
I think if you indeed think this further through, it will definitely create a bigger market for healthy foods and for healthy food that is scalable, not just hipster food that costs a lot and is locally produced in a farm. But this will definitely create a big market for and a big incentive for companies to produce healthier foods.
And there's another thing. I think if it's pushed by the government. Nothing negative about the government, but if it's pushed by a government, then it's the government meddling, maybe for good reasons, meddling with what we eat and what we drink, and I think part of why people are so anti everything right now, because the government meddles with everything, especially after the COVID crisis, and now we get this information and we're like, okay, this wasn't all right. Again, I don't have all the details, so I'm not here to judge whether people should have a vaccination or not. That's not up to me. But what I do see is that if the government tells me I can't do something because it's not healthy for me, I'm like, well, that's my decision, And of course, there's a social aspect to that, because if I get sick, then society pays for my being sick.
Yeah.
So that I understand the inherent consequence. But if you take one step back and you go to the source, to the root, where you say, okay, I order my food and, I want to lose weight, but I want to do it in a nice way, and please help me.
Yeah.
So don't tempt me with stuff that I shouldn't eat. That's a responsible way of selling.
Yeah.
And how grateful would you be to that brand?
Exactly.
That actually gets you at that weight or gets you into your swimsuit on time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Weight Watchers is going to kill us for this, but that's another thing. But I think that would be one of the best marketing tools around.
Yeah. So absolutely. I actually, during COVID, did some research for the Dutch government on how to persuade and convince the last 15% to get vaccinated. And I did, I think, 10, 15 qualitative interviews with people who refused to get vaccinated, which was very exciting for me, because I had never talked to these people. And time and again, what these people came back with was that they are skeptical about the vaccine, but the number one problem they have is with a government that tells them what to do. And as long as the question is framed that way, as the government tells me to do this, it's not negotiable. They don't want to have it. Yeah, and you can try to persuade them as much as possible of the benefits of the vaccine. They don't care. They just don't want the government to meddle into their life. And so one of the key principles in the science of influence is this principle called question substitution, which means that our automatic brain, our brain is constantly trying to make decisions without thinking hard about it. And so what we continuously do unconsciously is that we answer different questions. When we are confronted with a difficult problem, we answer a more easy or more exciting question. So when you ask that kind of person, would you want to get vaccinated? The question that they unconsciously answer is, I don't want this government to tell me what to do. And so this is a great example of a thing that the government shouldn't be meddling in, because these companies can actually make this question much more attractive. So it's not, you can't smoke. If the question would be, would you want us to help you with quitting smoking, or would you want to help you to get a smoke-free family? Then suddenly the question becomes much more compelling, much more friendly, much more exciting. And I think that this is potentially one of the big positive externalities of this race towards designing this intimate, persuasive relationship through AI, is that it could really help you to overcome all these difficult obstacles, these difficult behavioral changes.
Yeah, and I see another advantage, because we have some food allergies in the family. It's always, it's terrible. You have to go to the supermarket, read everything, and then sometimes they change the label. What if you would make my life easy and said, okay, what are the allergies? You only see what you can eat. Yeah. The rest, we won't even show. There's no risk we'll take care of you. Basically the American way, no worries, we'll take care of you. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, to come back to that example of the government, one of the things we figured out was that if you first connect with people by showing them understanding for their position and say, look, we're not going to persuade you, you're not going to be convinced about the vaccine, so you are entitled to your own beliefs and we respect that, but the question we want to ask you is, how much is your conviction worth to you, so that you can't go to a restaurant or a theater with your friends anymore? We're not going to convince you, but with only one injection, you can do the things that you absolutely would like to do again. And actually, there were quite some people who went, yeah, that's actually a good question. How much is my conviction worth, so that the things that really matter to me, which is, connecting with my friends again, are going to be hampered by this. And of course, you can't persuade anyone, because some of them are very, very strict in their beliefs. But it changed the question into a question that they could connect with, as long as you first gave them respect and understanding for their position. And I would say it's the same thing with chatbots. They will figure out this algorithm of seduction to get you to cross the line.
Yeah, that is basically my worry. That I think chatbots and conversational AI, in whatever shape or form, can do really great things in the medical field, but in the business field as well, internally and then externally. However, if there are companies or people that will use it in a negative way and will actually cross the line, then the whole concept will be dead, because then it will be scrutinized and we get all these legal measures to get all these special guardrails, and it should be in there by definition. It's an ethical thing, but my worry is that companies that have a huge commercial drive, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way, will abuse the theories of Cialdini and Hooked and Ariel to get their customers to do whatever they want, not what's in the interest of the customer. And that's where my fear is, or not fear, maybe worry. And again, going back to that, I would love that it would be sort of that the models follow instructions, and the instructions are in the theories. So we should kill this at the root, and not somewhere in the middle, because you can't.
No.
You cannot tell these models to do something if the theory says, exploit the theory or practice the theory in whatever you do.
Yeah.
Then you can't intervene. It won't work.
Yeah. I would say indeed that if you would simply feed two instructions into the algorithm, which is you will only design for serotonin and oxytocin, higher levels of serotonin and oxytocin, that would be an amazing briefing, because it would understand that in order to achieve that outcome, it needs to figure out how to seduce people for more, long-term behavioral changes, and say no to the short-term shortcuts. That would be, if of all the instructions that you could feed into the algorithm, that would be my two most exciting ones.
I don't think, my assumption is that nobody has tried to prompt this into their AI or into their chatbot to see what it does. I mean, I've tried it too, to say, okay, work with Hooked and then see what happens. And you see stuff happening. It's like, okay, this is not good. It's actually really scary what happens here. So, and I tried to push it back a bit. It didn't work. It just followed the rules of Hooked or Cialdini. And you get results like, okay, this is out of control, or will be out of control. And imagine doing it at scale. Then it becomes really scary. And the model gets better and better and better.
Awesome.
Especially if it analyzes sentiment and takes as you said, takes a shortcut or takes another route to get there. And it's a black box, you don't know.
Hooked is designed for dopamine rushes by design. And indeed, if you would instruct it to design for higher levels of serotonin as an outcome, it will search for ways to and oxytocin, the bonding drug. I think there's great theories in the psychology of well-being, great algorithms, great instructions, great prompts for AI to be found there. What drives happiness? It's social interactions, it's curiosity, it's learning new things, it's getting recognition. These are all the main drivers of a long-term sense of happiness and well-being. So let's feed those into the algorithm. If they really are committed to making us happy, then follow the rules of long-term happiness.
Let's find an experiment to do that.
Cool.
And see what comes out, and then we record another podcast and then publish the results.
That would be very exciting. That would be very exciting.
Let's figure something out. We'll talk to the teams. Having said that, going back to influencing people with AI, have you seen anything in the market or on the internet where you said, "Oh, this is an example of AI influencing people," where you say, "Okay, this could go completely south"?
Yeah, I would say of all the applications, is the voice synthesizing AIs are the most scary ones, because
deep fakes.
You only need 3 seconds of someone's voice to replicate that voice. My co-founders actually already created a set of checks one of my co-founders said to his wife, if you get a call from me and this call from me is about asking you money or the number of my bank account, then ask me this secret question to be absolutely sure that it's me and not a AI that has synthesized my voice. So this is definitely going to be terrifying. Combine that with quantum computing's capacity to break every password and every safeguard, every protection that we have against criminals is basically out in the open right now.
So what do we need to do? The $1 trillion question.
I don't know. I have no idea what we need to do. I'm just sitting there with a basket full of healthy vegetables or popcorn and watching the spectacle and thinking, oh my God, what an exciting time we are living in.
What the good news is, popcorn is also a vegetable.
Yeah, but so are French fries.
Yeah, good point. So there goes the healthy eating part. But again, if you say there's all these inherent risks, and they are there, I can acknowledge most of it. So should we influence, and we should influence the people in general, the communities around the world, to be aware of this, and how should they filter it? Because if you go to schools, we are not teaching our children in school how to distinguish the difference between real news and fake news. And that's another problem. I mean, AI can generate so much text.
Yeah.
And OpenAI pulled back their tool to detect AI generated text because it couldn't. So it got so good that they can't detect it anymore. Shouldn't we go back to the root and in our schooling system teach kids and students how to investigate and determine the difference? I don't know how, I have to be honest, but I'm seeing this. The teachers are a bit, not old school, but not aware of and not very fast to apply AI in schools. So we're still teaching our kids stuff they can look up on the internet, which is totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
and at the same time, we're not teaching them the digital skills they need in order to survive in the world that's coming,
Well,
or maybe is already there.
yeah, and that might be a boomer assumption. I have no idea. So
I'm probably one too.
Yeah, might be a boomer assumption. When I look at what my kids do at school, they are actually constantly challenged to form opinions, to look things up, to argue their opinion, and train their mind to be self-critical. So, and yes, they use ChatGPT and they use OpenAI to help them to come up with great answers, but by going through this practice to give them elegant answers to difficult questions, they actually engage in this explorative philosophical inquiry of reality. So I'm not that. I really think that indeed that schools should embrace it, take it into account, and create more curious people who use the technology to create better opinions. That being said, your first question was, should we, do more awareness? And one again of my core mantras or principles, besides, design for the automatic brain, not the deliberate rational brain. Another core principle as a behavioral designer is think outside in, not inside out. And what that means is, if you think inside out, what you're trying to do is you try to sell the desired, or you try to sell the danger of the undesired behavior. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince and persuade the rational brain that they need to pay attention. And of course, as psychologists, we know that no matter how hard you warn people, that's not how our brain works. That's not how we operate. So when you think outside in, what you're trying to answer, the question that you're trying to answer is, how can I contribute to the goals that people want to achieve in their life through this new behavior? Can I make them smarter? Can I make them happier? Can I fuel their curiosity? Can I tap into their desire to learn something or to learn a skill? And can I position this new behavior or the dangers of exploitation and manipulation as a better way for them to achieve the outcomes that they are passionate about? And if we can somehow inject this way of thinking and working into the education system, to create kids who get hungry for learning and growing and hungry for connecting and creating and designing better interactions and better worlds, then we definitely are onto something.
But that leaves one question, I think, unanswered. How do we teach our kids and students to figure out what's true or what's not true? Mm-hmm. Because that is one of the things. There's so much news and information, and we see that in also on the internet. There's tons and tons of publications, but a lot of them now are generated with AI. It's no new knowledge. It's just regenerated, regurgitated, and boom, we have a new article. Yeah. It's about clicks, not about actual new content. I'm sorry for a lot of people. And how do we teach our kids that what they read, because ChatGPT can write very compelling.
Sure.
Right? So how do we, if it's compelling, people believe it?
Well, the real question is, it doesn't matter if it's true or if it's not true, because we're not going to be able to win that battle, because you will never know if information is true or false. I think what does matter is what is the outcome of what we try to achieve. And if you weaponize people's resentment and their anger and their anxieties, and you weaponize it to turn it against their peers and themselves and against their country, and you make them so angry that they will eventually attack the landmark of democracy, which was what happened in January last year or this year with the Capitol Hill thing, then it doesn't matter if the information is true or false. It is used to weaponize people towards a certain outcome. And I do think what will matter is, can we somehow get a deeper understanding of what kinds of outcomes will lead to a happier life? Is it the joy of breaking things, or is it the joy of creating community? Is it the joy of designing an ecosystem in which people thrive, and in which nature thrives, and in which communities thrive, and in which people will prosper financially and in all kinds of ways. That is, I think, what really matters. And we not only need to feed these maxims into the algorithm. I do think that we also need to feed these maxims about what constitutes a happy life or a well-lived life. That to have a shared understanding of that will probably be one of the most defining questions of the future. And the question about whether information is true or is not will become more and more irrelevant, because that's a battle we can't win.
And that could be true. We'll find out in the future. One of the things I see is that there's so much information, people can't follow it anyway anymore. It's just too much. It's overload.
Yeah. Absolutely. People tune out. Actually, someone said that to me yesterday, that more and more people are tuning out because they are just too overwhelmed.
Yeah, they look up solitude and shut down their phone and their computer.
Exactly.
It's interesting. You see that the amount of people that try to move from Holland to a drier, warmer country.
Yeah.
Actually moving south because and to peace and quiet and clean air, by the way. But that what you just said, is that a general thing or a personal thing? And what leads to happiness? Is that would it be just for me?
No.
Or you? Or one size fits all?
No, there's no one size fits all, but we are social animals. We're what was again O.W. Wilson, the biologist, said we have what was it again? We have godlike institutions. What was it again? We have godlike institutions. We have a Paleolithic brain, godlike institutions, and I don't know, but basically is that we're just a chimp with nukes. And I think we're deeply social animals, so we can't survive. We're hardwired to live inside the recognition and appreciation of a community. Even those who are selfish, they really need others to to fulfill their selfish need. Even bullies, they need
someone to bully.
Yeah, someone to bully, but also the perspective of others who fear them, because without them they would just be anxious and lonely. So to design for a society in which people thrive, in which there's plenty of recognition in all kinds of funny or quirky ways, that doesn't matter, as long as you design a context that provides that. That really is the high road to happiness. So no, it shouldn't be a communist vision about one size fits all. If we would only work hard, then eventually paradise will appear. No, it's not going to be like that. But if you can design a society full of recognition, of challenges, of learning experience, of growing experience, that's definitely what everyone is looking for.
And I do think part of what you say can be brought back into a chatbot. You could start a chatbot, depends on what it's for, what makes you happy, and then guide them through the conversation, what the bot needs in terms of information to do the work it needs to do.
Yes.
That is actually an interesting way of looking at it. And I don't think any chatbot I've seen or we've tested in broadcasters, or I've seen in my business, does this. And to be honest and fair, I've never thought about applying this. It sounds really easy as you say it. To apply it, it's not that easy, because what comes behind is very, very complicated.
Yes.
Because one wrong turn and you basically screw up the whole thing, and you screw up your relationship with your customer.
Absolutely. But it's very complicated, but the intelligence to solve these puzzles is in the algorithm. We really need to figure out what are the maxims, the first principles that we want this algorithm to operate upon. And I think that if you would follow the rules of the psychology of well-being and the psychology of a well-lived life, that if someone could crack the code of feeding that into a chatbot or an algorithm, I think that would be $1 billion business.
Well, let's take this apart a little bit, because you need to you have this theory, or this basically this practice of what constitutes a happy life and a healthy life.
Correct.
And you have this person with his own strange quirks and preferences, etc., and his character, and somehow you need to match these two.
Mm-hmm.
So would there be any 5 questions you could ask a consumer or a person which help you apply the theory on the other end and then get it right? Because you can use AI to do sentiment analysis. Basically, the way people compose a sentence or the words they use, you can analyze sort of the way they feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you could use that as an injection into the model. It's like, hey, this is how he's feeling. We want to steer him towards it. That's what he asked us to make him happy. Do you see a couple of questions that could help us do just that?
So
personal information.
Sure. I would say that it's not about the questions. I would rather say it's about the principles. I mean, look at. I think that the well-being, the psychological and physical well-being industry is billions and billions of dollars. Everyone who goes in a retreat, do yoga, whatever, people are paying big money to feel good about themselves.
They're searching for the Holy Grail.
But the principles that constitute happiness are fairly universal. If you be meaningful to other people, that really makes you happy. In contrast to what we believe, is that altruism is much more a driver for long-term happiness than selfishness. Being curious is a very, very big driver for happiness. Why? Because curious people learn new things, meet new people, overcome obstacles, get these surprising encounters with new people, etc., etc. Being part of a positive community or tribe or social network is a very, very big driver of happiness. So we know all these things, and everyone craves for these outcomes. They just don't know the path towards these outcomes. And I would say, instead of asking questions, because people have no idea what they do, I will always bullshit an answer simply because I want to. If you ask me a question, I want to answer it. That's how our brain works. But
You're not saying this whole podcast is one big bullshit bingo.
Well, it's not me just talking. It's my brain presenting answers to the prompts that you ask me. And it's not my ego's answering. It's this vast unconscious knowledge of all the knowledge, know-how, and wisdom that I've accumulated over the years that simply started to talk as an answer to your question. And I'm amazed as much by the things that blurred out of my mouth as you are. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. It will be around on YouTube for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no worries. But so we don't know what we know, and we don't know what drives us. But we have this bullshit generating answering machine that will always come up with a logical answer to create a consistent reality for ourselves. So if you would ask these questions, the answer to those questions would be irrelevant. If you would promise me a path to happiness and an approach towards achieving more happiness, then I would be very happy to follow that path and to help me to protect me against all these obstacles and barriers that would prevent me from achieving that outcome. Because everyone knows that it's our inability to stick to the difficult choices that eventually will make us deeply unhappy.
That's interesting, and yet we still do it. We know it's going to happen, and we still do it.
Sure.
And that's actually the same thing as you said with the gym. We know in the short term you don't see any results, but if you stick to it and you're consistent, same with medicine.
Adherence, yeah.
Yeah, adherence to therapy. It's the same story. It's the long-term effect, but that's all. They did these experiments with kids. With you can have 1 or 2 candies now, or a plate full of candy, and the same with money. what do you choose? And most people choose the short-term
Sure.
gratification.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. So people are inherent to choose the short-term gratification, but it's in their best interest to choose the long-term gratification. So how do you bridge that? How do you
again, ability eats motivation for breakfast. If you can get me to commit to a program and I would commit to my AI helping me to overcome these obstacles, I would then commit to the AI blocking all social media on my phone. I would commit to the AI making the orders in the supermarket. And I would commit to the AI who could measure my glucose levels and see that I've been sneakingly eating candy and would donate 100 euros to a charity that I absolutely hate every time.
Automatically taken out of your account, right?
Yeah. There's all these interesting behavioral principles that it could apply to really motivate me and to help me to stick to the Valhalla that I would like to achieve.
You've just managed to connect altruism and health.
Yeah, there's this brilliant website called shtick.com, and it's a website. It asks you to commit, for instance, to I want to run 5K or I want to quit smoking in a month. Then it says to you, okay, how much money would you like to put at stake? If you don't achieve this goal, the money will be gone. So, okay, I will put 500 euros at stake because I really want to achieve it. Then this site says, okay, now appoint 2 referees in your friends who will judge if you indeed met your goal. And if they haven't met your goal, they have the key to unlock this money. And to make it a little bit more interesting, if you don't achieve your goal, the money could go to a charity that you like, but it could also go to a charity that you absolutely hate, like, for instance, the neo-Nazi party. And so there's our great stories on stick.com of Jewish people who put in a health challenge, and if they wouldn't succeed, then the money they put at stake would go to a neo-Nazi party. It really boosts your motivation through the principle of loss aversion.
As a Jew myself, I can totally relate to this, and I think it's actually hilarious to use that as your motive. It's all bad, of course, but it's hilarious that you push people to do stuff.
Yeah, people do it themselves because they feel that if they wouldn't put a stick behind the door, then they simply wouldn't succeed. So they have to make it. It's a motivation booster. And I think there's so many mechanisms for an AI to level your commitment or to boost your commitment through all these mechanisms. That is so much fun to be, to do that. So it's uncharted territory.
And I think we will see a lot of that coming in the next few months and years. If you to finalize this podcast, but if you would. If you have a random company that would start now with a chatbot based on AI, what would you, and they have a customer base and they want to put part of their customer service in the chatbot. What would you advise them from a psychological or a consumer behavior perspective if they want to drive the consumers to the chatbot instead of calling the call center or sending emails or what have you, basically to push them to the channel? What would your approach be?
Oh, very simple. Again, one of the maxims of behavioral design is you are basically a choice designer. And if you think about human behavior, then our behavior is being shaped by the way choices are being presented to us. Our automatic brain makes a decision based on how a choice is being presented. So I would definitely present the choice in a very simple way. I will present you with a binary choice. You can call a live person. It will take you about 1 hour to 1 hour and a half to achieve the outcome that you want. Or you can deal with our AI-powered chatbot who is always there 24/7 and could, with a 90% certainty, solve your problem within 5 minutes. What do you want to choose? Now, when you present a choice like that, I can assure you that that it's a no-brainer.
They will try it first.
Yeah, of course.
And then you have to deliver, of course. But
and then you have to deliver. Yeah.
That's the thing. If you promise that, you need to be able to deliver. If you can't deliver, it's actually a disaster.
Yeah. And I would humanize it. I would call her Linda, and Linda has this great voice, and just make it as human as possible.
This is one of the dilemmas in the conversational AI community. People go from left to right. It's like, oh, it's a ridiculous discussion, by the way, but should we call her Linda? Should we call him Pierre? Or is it a non-binary chatbot? Because we can't. It's a crazy discussion because it's all virtual. It doesn't make a difference. No. It's also about brand image and a bit of wokeness here and there, which I think shouldn't be injected here because it's about customer service. Who cares? But
and you can present the options.
Most of the times, a female name works better with an avatar. People have a perception that apparently a woman delivers better service or listens better or something like that. And they're not totally wrong, to be honest. But having said that, there is a truth to that, to putting a face or a name to the chatbot to make it a little bit more personal. But at the same time, you should always say, this is a chatbot. I'm still learning, and manage the expectations. So it's a bit of a trade-off. You want to make it personal, or personalize it or humanize it. That's the word. Yeah. But at the same time, they need to understand it's still a chatbot. It's AI or it's scripted. It doesn't matter. But it's not a human talking to them. And they can always, I think they should have the option to talk to a human, although it takes more time.
Yes.
So always try the chatbot first. Thank you very much, Tom. This was very insightful. And I think we came up with a few interesting thoughts and ideas for companies, especially for Niriel and Mr. Cialdini, to adapt their theories to make them AI safe. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. We'll ask them. But I think there's opportunities in the market for. I think one of the professions that aren't going to change is yours, because I think you guys are part of the guardrails. The human guardrails, understanding what the impact is of AI and other technologies on human behavior and what you should or should not do. Mm-hmm. And then basically understanding what the effect of a certain prompt could be. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tom, for being here on the show. And maybe we'll experiment. My pleasure. Thank you for, hopefully we can get to experiment with some of the things we said and see if we can bring the results back to the show.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Great talking to you, Doran.
Same here. Thank you.